I call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 5 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Natural Resources. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee is continuing its study of a greenhouse gas emissions cap for the oil and gas sector. Today is our second day of 8 meetings with witnesses for this study. Today's meeting has taken place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of November 25th, 2021. Members are attending in person in the room or remotely using the Zoom application. Please note that the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entire committee. I would like to take this opportunity to remind all participants that screenshots or taking photos of your screen is not permitted. Today's proceedings will be televised and also made available via the House of Commons website. Given the ongoing pandemic situation and in light of the recommendations from public health authorities, as well as the directive of the Board of Internal Economy on October 19, 2021, to remain healthy and safe, the following is recommended for all those attending the meeting in person. Anyone with symptoms should participate via Zoom and not attend the meeting in person. Everyone must maintain 2-meter physical distancing, whether seated or standing. Non-medical masks are required to be worn in committee rooms and may only be removed when the member is seated in their place during the meeting and is speaking. It is strongly recommended that members wear their masks at all times, including when seated. Non-medical masks are available in the room and they provide better clarity over cloth masks with respect to our interpreters being able to hear our interventions. Everyone present must maintain proper hand hygiene by using the hand sanitizer at the room entrance. Committee rooms are cleaned before and after each meeting. To maintain this, everyone is encouraged to clean surfaces such as the desk, chair, and microphone with the provided disinfectant wipes when vacating or taking a seat. As the chair, I will be enforcing these measures for the duration of the meeting, and I thank the members in advance for their cooperation. To ensure an orderly meeting, I would like to outline a few quick rules. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. Members and witnesses may speak in the official language of their choice. And for our witnesses, I'd ask you, when you're giving your testimony, to not go too quickly to allow our interpreters to keep up. For members in the room, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand, and the clerk and I will do our best to keep track of the speaking order. For members on Zoom, please use the raise hand functions, and you will be placed in order. As I'm sure you can all appreciate, this can be a challenge, but the clerk and I will do our best to make sure that the order of hands going up is respected and followed. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. If you are on Zoom, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. For members in the room, your microphone will be controlled as usual by the Proceedings and Verification Officer. When you're not speaking, your mic should be on mute. A reminder that all comments by members and witnesses should be addressed through the chair, and I would like to thank Mr. Barlow for joining us today as one of the substitutes for today's committee. Now, we are at a study of a greenhouse gas emissions cap for the oil and gas sector, and I'm going to welcome our witnesses from the Net Zero Advisory Body, Marie Priere-Yppersiel and Dan Wicklum, who are both co-chairs. I would like to thank Mr. Wicklum in particular, who I understand had some problems on Monday, but went to extraordinary efforts to get himself to a new location where the tech check was able to be successfully completed. He found the House-approved headsets and is able to join us on very short notice. And I really appreciate both of you accommodating our rescheduling for Monday and being here so quickly after we had the technical issues on Monday. So thank you so much for that. With that, I'm going to invite you to give your 5-minute opening comments, and then we'll get right into our rounds of questions and answers, and we will be ending today at 2 o'clock so that everyone can join question period. So with that, I will get you started. I'll also say we use a quick card system. Yellow means there's 30 seconds left. Red means the time's up. Wind up your thought, but don't stop mid-sentence. And I'll let you know if you keep going too much beyond the allotted time. So Mr. Wicklum, Ms. Yppersiel, over to you for 5 minutes, please.
Monsieur le Président, Madame.
Mr. Chairperson, Co-Chair, distinguished members of the Standing Committee on Natural Resources, we are pleased to have been invited as witnesses for this committee's study on the greenhouse gas emissions cap for the oil and gas sector. As you are probably aware, the Net Zero Advisory Group was established in 2021 1. We are a group of 11 individuals from across Canada with a strong and diverse range of expertise. Our mandate under Canada's Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act is to provide the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change with independent advice on the most likely trajectories for Canada to achieve net zero emissions by 2050, as well on emission reduction milestones and plans through 2050. In July, we released our first publication, Pathways to Net Zero, Initial Observations. This paper identifies 10 key values and design principles that we believe should guide the development of transition trajectories that are most likely to enable Canada to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. By adhering to all 10 of these values and principles, Canada could not only achieve net zero in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, but could also create a more just, healthy, and prosperous future for all Canadians. In general, and interestingly, the people we met with support these values and principles, which may be useful to the committee in its deliberations on net zero emissions issues.
Thanks, Marie-Pierre. We'd also like to flag for the committee that we organized our work along 4 lines of inquiry, which is the term used in our terms of reference. You can think of the lines of inquiry as our priorities. So our 4 priorities or lines of inquiry were oil and gas, transportation, buildings, and governance. And the Net Zero Advisory Body worked on these priorities throughout the past summer and fall. As members of the committee are likely aware, in November 2021, we also received a letter from the Minister of Environment and Climate Change and the Minister of Natural Resources, in which they jointly tasked us as an advisory body to give advice on key guiding principles that the government could use to inform their development of quantitative 5-year targets for emission reductions in the oil and gas sector. We accepted this task, considering that it aligned completely with the act that brought us into being and our terms of reference. Also, as engagement is central to our mandate, we reached out to sector and scientific experts, decision makers, broadly to Canadians, business and industry, and different types of other organizations and associations, including those representing workers and Indigenous peoples, to inform our development of guiding principles. As part of this engagement, we participated in discussions and briefings with industry leaders, labor groups, Indigenous representatives, and environmental experts. And we received over 1,200 comments and submissions, including from provinces and territories. And we hosted 7 roundtables with nearly 60 participating organizations. This engagement took place across all 4 of our advisory body lines of inquiry, but most submissions reflected on Canada's broader pathways to get to net zero and the implications for the energy sector, specifically the oil and gas industry. So this engagement will inform our submission to the Government of Canada that will be taken into account as the government develops its 2030 emissions reduction plan that is required under the Act. The Net Zero Advisory Body is in the process of finalizing its advice for the emission reduction plan, including guiding principles for setting quantitative emissions reduction targets. We've been pleased to share our final advice with members of the committee at the earliest opportunity. And Marie-Pierre and I, on behalf of the whole NZAB, are pleased to be invited to meet with you and look forward to contributing to your deliberations. Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Thank you for those opening comments. We're going to get right into our rounds of questions and answers. And so the first round, each of the members participating will have 6 minutes. And first up is Ms. Michelle Rempel-Garner. So over to you for your 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Will the proposed cap emit new oil and gas projects now underway? Exempt, sorry.
I think for that type of question, it's actually outside of the purview of the Net Zero Advisory Body. Our job is to come up with key guiding principles to allow the Government of Canada to set the cap and to frankly determine the regulatory regime about how to administer that cap. So
as a guiding principle, do you believe that new oil and gas projects currently underway should be exempt from the cap?
Yeah, and we're actually not interpreting our role to get into that level of detail. We're interpreting our role to the letter of the tasking letter. And we are interpreting our role about emissions, not about production levels or new facilities or older facilities. It's really how would the government come up with a number about what in terms of carbon equivalents? Yeah.
Thank you. Will the proposed cap or would your guidance be to exempt reserves that are proven and on company books?
Again, that's a level of detail that we think is outside of our purview, and that would be up to the government to determine, the specific regulatory regime about what's in and what's out. Our job is really to help them come up with a number about the cap and a number, what would at a carbon equivalent of emission level.
But if you're not giving principles on or guidance on those things, how can we be sure that this is a cap on emissions and not production?
Well, again, it's, I would think you should refer that question to the government. It's their job.
But this is your job. Just to be clear,
yeah.
Do you believe that this should be a cap only on emissions and not on production?
Well, absolutely. And I think, we're taking our direction from the minister on that. The minister has been quite clear that he does not see this as a cap on production. It is a cap on emissions.
And so you've given no advice or guiding principles on the questions that I asked earlier with regard to reserves that are proven and on the books, approved oil and gas projects that might not have started yet. Has there been any guidance on those things at all?
That's a level of detail that really the government has to sort through. Our principles are going to be at a higher level than that.
Do you think that in terms of principles, announcing the cap without giving guidance on those things might lead to instability for investment in the oil and gas sector?
That's another question I think you'd have to ask the investment community about whether they consider giving preliminary guidance as policy certainty
I thought you consulted with them. Did they tell you that?
We didn't get into that level of detail at all.
That's really unfortunate. I'll move on. Is your guidance giving any credence or room for complementary measures like carbon capture and storage or direct air capture?
So we don't get into the details. We're really trying to leave our guidance at the strategic level. However, I can say that carbon capture and storage, we feel, is probably a very, very important technology for the world.
But that wasn't provided.
Let alone
that wasn't provided as part of your guidance. Do you provide any guidance on perhaps regulating, if we're proposing a cap on the oil and gas sector, simultaneously proposing caps on other emitting sectors like concrete, for example, in order to perhaps have equilibrium or a more cohesive approach to industrial emissions in Canada?
So again, our specific task is about coming up with principles that the government use to set targets forward for the oil and gas sector. I can tell you that what we have found, it's very difficult to do that in isolation. So coming up with a target number for emissions for the oil and gas sector really needs to take into account other measures.
Thank you. Did you provide any guidance on what types of substitute goods would be needed to achieve the reductions under as part of your guidance for the oil and gas sector, or let's say
can you explain substitute goods?
I'm just thinking, like, for example, if we're moving off of oil and gas, perhaps other products that could be used. I'm just trying to get a sense, because you haven't really told me what like there's a lot of questions here that industry, that the environmental community have on what guidance you've been providing. And I've just heard over and over again that you haven't provided that guidance. So maybe I'll try and structure my questions more on some of your modeling that you've used. Has any of your guidance accounted for potential carbon leakage by regulating or putting a hard cap on Canada's oil and gas sector, that we would be displacing that product or that production to other higher carbon emitting jurisdictions?
So one thing I'll just clarify here, I mean, most of your questions are looking for a degree of resolution that we're not interpreting as in our task. So, our principles or our thinking is at a higher strategic level to really make sure that the government has the responsibility to set the targets.
So what is
it's
it
not our job
that
to set
you
the
would
targets.
say that
it really needs to be elected officials.
Yeah. So what is it that you would say that you would do that you've done?
I'll answer your last question here about carbon leakage. One thing that we're quite adamant as an advisory body is to sticking to our mandate as is given to us in the Act and our terms of reference. And our Act, our mandate.
So you've provided a level of
Pardon, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Chairperson, on a point of order, I apologise. I don't want to put a spanner in the members' works, but the speed is far too quick and the interpreters cannot keep up. I don't want Michelle to have to slow down. I know she's passionate about this topic, but if we could just have a little bit of a slower speed so the interpreters can do their job properly.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Simard, for your intervention. And I would, encourage people to allow one to finish before starting, because it does make it impossible for the interpreters to do their jobs and provide the translation. Unfortunately, I do have to cut us off here. That is the end of the 6 minutes. And but thank you for the first round. We're going to jump right now to Ms. DeBruce, and who will have 6 minutes for her questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here. I was going to go back to the report that you put out, the Net Zero Pathways report, and ask just some questions about net zero and what's included and what isn't. If I can go to principle number 4 was don't get caught in the net. And I was wondering if you could help me better understand where you're going with that about the net zero.
See, my apologies, Mr. Chair and Ms. Yosimar. I will speak slower to allow translation to keep up. One of the things that we found when we produced our first report, which I'll add an important qualification, we produced the report after meeting with 14 groups or organizations from around the world that had already produced a full society pathway to net zero. So instead of starting from scratch on our work to give the government advice, we and the government thought it prudent to meet with groups that had already done this. So we met with 14 groups. And instead of summarizing the work of those 14 at a very detailed technical level, we decided to draw emergent conclusions in the form of values and principles that would guide our future work. So these 10 values and principles are not really the Net Zero Advisory Body's work. They are the emergent observations of the work of the 14 groups globally. The concept of not getting caught in the net reflects their equation of net zero. Net zero does not mean zero. Net zero occurs when you have emissions going into the atmosphere and you subtract emissions coming out of the atmosphere. That could be a natural removal. It could be a technological removal. Those are very legitimate tools to use to get to net zero. However, we feel that there's a risk that governments, societies, sectors, companies should be extremely aware of, and that is there will be a tendency for people not to want to change the underlying emitting systems and rely on removals. We feel that is not a recipe for success to get to net zero, and that the concept of removal, the netting part of the equation, should be reserved for the absolute most difficult emissions to reduce to zero. Said otherwise, we should be pushing hard, all of us, to reduce our emissions as much as we possibly can, and reserving removal technologies for the most difficult emissions the closer we get to 2050.
Okay, thank you. I was going to also say, I think the issue was more the speaking over each other, not the speed at which we're speaking for interpretation. So you can speak at your regular pace. I didn't want to interrupt you, but you can speak at a regular pace. Came up in our last meeting about what we're talking about when we're saying net zero, what's included from the IPCC standards. So for example, if we're producing oil here, the emissions from that production are included in our emissions that we calculate for our country. If it is exported and used in a different country, does that get included? Oh no, now I don't hear you.
Yeah, we're not hearing you, Mr. Wicklum.
If I could just take over, perhaps. Yes, please do go ahead. I'd be pleased to hear your thoughts. Well, I think I heard your question, but basically the commitment to net zero for Canada will include greenhouse gas emissions, but will be limited geographically to emissions that are generated in Canada across all sectors. And I'm not only referring to the oil and gas sector. Now, this is in line with international standards and accountability for GHG emissions. Each country will account for its emissions produced domestically within its own borders. So emissions to do with exports that produce GHGs are accounted for in the country in which they are used. I don't know if that responds to your question. Yes, indeed, that's exactly my question. I do have another question. I know that I'm running out of time. I don't know what the word is in French. Border carbon adjustments. When it comes to net zero, is there a role for border carbon adjustments? I'll let Dan respond to that question, if he can.
Yeah. Okay. So we're here testifying on behalf of our very formal role as the Net Zero Advisory Body. And at this point, the Net Zero Advisory Body has not delved into the specific regulatory or policy implementation regime for emission reduction plan. So I wouldn't feel comfortable speaking to that. We simply haven't dealt with it at this point.
Okay.
That's the end
Chair,
of that session.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay. We're going to go now to Monsieur Simard. He will have 6 minutes. Over to you, Monsieur Simard.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have about 3 or 4 concerns and misgivings, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on those, Ms. Percial and Mr. Whitlam. First, I have trouble understanding the principle whereby one must focus on emissions capping alone. How is it that one can increase oil and gas production and yet at the same time arrive at results that will be beneficial in achieving net zero emissions? And yet the government seems to be heading in the direction of focusing solely on capping emissions. So first, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, and then I'd have a couple of other questions about technologies that may be put to use in order to cap those emissions.
Maybe I'll take that question. I think it's important to remember that oil and gas, especially oil, but gas as well, is used for providing products, developing products or providing services, frankly, other than fuels that are combusted in an internal combustion engine or a turbine that result in scope 3 emissions, the emissions that go into the atmosphere, which is the problem of why our planet is heating up. So I'll take oil sands for an example. Bitumen is used for asphalt. So we're actually going to need heavy oil production in a net zero world. Even EVs and hydrogen trucks need roads. There are other products that are made out of oil that are frankly not emitting. So I think it's very valid for an oil sector to drive itself to have zero emissions in its production.
Sorry to cut you off, Mr. Whitlam. I'm aware of all of that, and I thank you for that information. So I'll just turn to my second concern, if I may. You spoke about how the oil sector produces a whole host of products that human beings use on a daily basis. I'm fully aware of that. However, I also know full well that we can substitute oil products using lignin, for example. It's a biomass product. I know that there is a cost associated with that, but that is why the bio sector is not really taking off, because the costs are prohibitive. So we're talking about existing billions of dollars. For example, the carbon capture strategy in Alberta, $2.5 billion, of which will be a cost shared between the Albertan and the federal governments. And that won't be used for research and development in sectors that already have a low carbon footprint. So to my mind, this is absurd. It's illogical. What we're trying to achieve through investment and through R&D is to decarbonize the worst sector of activity in Canada, and in the same breath, not support replacement fuel sectors that may provide a solution as a pathway to a far lower carbon footprint in Canada. Do you agree with me on that point?
I think I would answer by saying what the Net Zero Advisory Body's job is, very formally under the Act, is to advise on interim targets and most likely pathways to net zero. It's about emissions. And if there are ways where we can use our whole suite of natural resources from agriculture or oil and gas in ways that are fully compatible with a net zero society, we think those are legitimate options. So again, this is for us is not about making sure that no oil and gas is produced. It is absolutely about making sure that we have an economy in 2050 that is net zero. So we're contributing to our.
But that's not what I'm trying to get at here. I understand what your terms of reference are. But if the objective, sorry about that, my phone's going off. But if the objective under your terms of reference is to see GHG emissions reduced, well, surely the guiding principle cannot be decarbonising oil alone. That wouldn't be enough. I'd like to hear what the key guiding principle is in the Environmental Act, and that is polluter pays, not that the other way around. So this presupposes that new technologies, clean fuel technologies, will be delayed because all government resources will be invested in decarbonising oil. I just don't think that makes sense. But based on your response, that doesn't fall under your mandate. Am I putting words in your mouth, or is that exactly what you are trying to communicate?
No. So one of the issues here is, what are the policy and regulatory provisions that need to come in place for all sectors to drive their emissions down as low as they can. The government also, frankly, has to struggle with the extremely difficult question around how should their incentive structure be set up, and where, if they have limited government resources, which they do, where is their investments and incentives best placed across the full suite of emission reduction strategies for every sector. I'll just note that much of what we're talking about here is, again, about emissions associated with oil and gas production, but most of the emissions that are associated with the oil and gas full value chain come from scope 3. It comes from burning them, especially in heating buildings and moving goods around the landscape in internal combustion engines. So the government has...
Yes, but it's a vicious circle, isn't it?
We're out of time in this round, and just we only have 1 hour. Yes.
Understood. I apologise, and thank you for your answers, Mr. Whitlam.
Thank you. Mr. Angus, over to you for your 6 minutes.
Well, thank you so much. This is perhaps for me the most important study I've ever been involved in, because we're talking about the future of the planet and the clock is ticking. So you were established, I think, is it in February 2020 by legislation to advise the Environment Minister on acting early and urgently. So when did you begin discussions with the Environment Minister on the establishment of an emissions cap and what it would entail?
So we actually were launched in early 2021, but the act that actually made us real was only brought into place in late summer. Okay. Having said that, we operated as we have been in operation since early 2021. The first time that we started thinking about the concept of cap and successively stringent targets is when we received the letter from both ministers. That's what kicked off this work.
Thank you. That's excellent to know, because I have that letter here. So that letter is November 1st. Right. Minister Guilbeault and Minister Wilkinson formally asked you to consider an emissions cap. That's the same day the Prime Minister stood up and told the world that he had an emissions cap. I find that kind of extraordinary. I mean, I hate that expression about writing things on the back of a napkin, but couldn't the minister have at least called you from the airport before he went? I mean, the Prime Minister stands on the world stage and says there's an emissions cap plan, and they have never bothered to ask you to look into it. Don't you think that raises questions about our credibility?
Bluntly, no. I think when you take a look at our terms of reference says we are to advise the government on numerical targets. Okay,
sorry, I'm reading it says that they're asking you to, quote, prioritize early and deep reduction. So this is as serious as it gets. So you're mandated to prioritize early and deep reductions at a time when the Prime Minister standing on the world stage saying he's got an emissions cap, he hasn't talked to anybody about it. And at the same time, we have Canada's energy regulator that's promoting an increase of 1.2 million barrels a day coming out of the oil sands. How do you square that you're going to be pushing for deep reductions while the government you're working for is promoting massive increases in the oil sector?
So I would say the sequence of operations that went like this, and I'll start by qualifying.
I need to say, I don't want to be rude. I don't have much time. I'm not interested in the sequence. I'm interested in this policy conflict. How do you push for these early and deep reductions while the government you're working for is telling the world that they're going to be looking to at least a massive increase of over 1 million barrels a day? What do you say to that?
First of all, it's not our job to decide whether or not Canada is going to have a cap or not. That's the government's job. They did that. Now they're asking our advice to help put the cap in place. That's completely consistent with the Act and our terms of reference.
Okay, so your Act says, it tells you also, because you just what you're saying publicly, do not allow for increases in GHG emissions. Don't you call the minister and say, what the heck are you guys doing promoting a 1.1 million barrel a day increase? That is contradictory to your mandate, is it not?
Well, look, I would say the Canadian Energy Regulator is a crown corporation. I mean, it's actually not the government. They have their own independent board. They have their own independent management. Yep. I do know that the minister, you have to talk to the government, but I do know the minister has messaged to them quite strongly that they wanted to, the minister wanted the Canadian Energy Regulator to align its operations and its philosophy to a net zero 2050 outcome. Okay. And I know that is happening as we speak.
Okay, well, that's good to know, because you said to my colleague that you weren't looking at whether new projects would be even under the cap, but the International Energy Agency, I mean, hardly a hotbed of radicalism, is saying there should be no new oil and gas if we're going to meet our targets. So is that something in line with you? If you say your mandate is to not allow for increases in greenhouse gas emissions, how is it that you don't look at the new projects coming on? At least be under the cap, or what the IEA is saying, whether they should be allowed at all.
Yeah, again, I think that's a degree of resolution that is not aligned with our mandate, but the government is going to have to struggle with that. If there's a cap, what is it, and what are the implications for existing or new projects underneath the cap? That's the government's responsibility. We are interpreting our our terms of reference and our task as providing guidance on a higher strategic level and leaving those types of decisions to the government.
I'm looking at this thing here that's really reassuring Canadians that you guys are going to be prioritizing early and deep reductions. And I'm trying to figure out where these early and deep reductions are happening, because I want to go to the other principle that this Liberal government's working on, and you seem to support that the emissions that are coming from our offshore sales of oil and gas is more than all the emissions made in all the sectors of Canada combined. When we add the TMX pipeline, which is designed for export, 900,000 more barrels will be exported. But you don't think that has to be considered if we're going to look at actually saving the planet? That's somebody else's problem?
So I need to be clear on this. We don't have an opinion on that because
you don't have an opinion on that
because it's outside of the purview of the act that makes us real. It's
I know,
not in
but
our terms of reference. That's right.
You know, this would be a great discussion in 2006. But what the IPC is saying, the planet is burning. So we have a government that is going to massively increase export to places like China or India, where it'll be burned. Your job is to warn the government to prioritize early and deep reductions and make sure we don't have greenhouse gas emissions. They are exporting upwards of 1 million barrels overseas so it can be burned there. Don't you think you have at least the moral obligation to warn the government to say, come on, guys, you can't pull this kind of stuff and meet our obligations on the international stage?
We're out of time on this round, and sorry, I'm just going to have to cut it off there. If Mr. Angus wants to come back to that, we should get back to him one more time. But right now we're going to move into our second round, slightly shorter, and Mr. Melillo is first up with 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to go back to Mr. Wicklum and actually pick up on a question asked by my Liberal colleague, Mr. Brusen, and perhaps I misinterpreted your answer, and correct me if I am wrong, but I'd just like to get a bit of clarity there. In talking about how we measure net zero, you mentioned obviously there's the natural forests we have that are sequestering carbon. You mentioned the removal technologies that we have, which is great. But as I understood it, and of course I'm paraphrasing, I understood you were sort of saying that you see those technologies as something later down the road that we can rely on if other measures don't work. From my point of view, of course, we want to lower emissions as quickly as we can. We want to lean on all the technologies we have and develop those technologies. So why would that not be something that we look at using right away? Just want to get your comments there.
Oh, we're not getting you, Mr. Wicklum. Stop the clock.
You hear me now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay, I'm sorry. There's a nuance here. When you take a look at our principle in our summary report about not getting caught in the net, we are concerned that people will start using removal technologies as an excuse to delay action or as an excuse not to reduce emissions. And we are adamant that a successful pathway to net zero is going to have to rely on deep actual emissions reductions. And
I understand that, but if we don't use these technologies, are we not delaying action? We're not going to use removal technology to lower emissions because you want to lower emissions another way, but if we're not doing that, why would we not use those technologies?
Well, again, there's how do you lower emissions? Using removal technologies should be, we think, reserved for the most difficult to remove emissions. And yet, if we focus on removal technologies now, we're quite concerned it will de-emphasize or take focus away from the very, very difficult job of actually reducing emissions. So that is our very strong opinion, which is why we put it in one as the key principles. Is these are legitimate technologies. Okay. Or approaches, but they cannot be used as an excuse to delay action, or they cannot be used as an excuse to actually reduce emissions. Okay,
thank you for that. I would certainly disagree with you on that, but I understand, I guess, where you're coming from. I have a lot of topics I'd like to try to get to, so I'll move to another one. In terms of looking at new technologies, whether it's solar, wind, a number of things that we're working on. Obviously, critical minerals is going to play an important role there. That's important for my riding. The Ring of Fire is sort of a notable example there of areas that we can access critical minerals. In your view, would you recommend that Canada has a broader focus on domestic extraction of critical minerals to help support that transition?
if I bridge that question back to our original summary report, one of the key things we found is that this is not just a downside. This concept of getting to net zero, there's probably one of the largest economic opportunities in many generations, and you can see the whole world positioning themselves how to win economically in this big change. There are huge upsides that we need to position Canada to be able to capitalize on. And we have thought about the concept of value chains and minerals, and we do think that's very important for Canada to act quickly, strategically, in order to be able to capitalize on this potential upside that will only become real unless we act. And I think the private sector has a very, very strong responsibility in this as well. Okay. One of our core principles is people have been waiting for 30 years for the federal government to do something so that they could act. We're past that. There needs to be shared responsibility as much in the private sector as there is in the federal government, and as much in the provincial and municipal governments as there is in the federal government. That's a key finding that we'll be giving for our emissions reduction report.
I appreciate that. And sorry, I'm limited for time. I don't mean to be rude, but obviously I want to get as many questions in as I can. And as well, I would like to take it a bit away from industry, actually, and kind of look at local individualized community-based solutions, and get your thoughts on that. I mean, for example, Fort Severn in my riding, which is the northernmost community in Ontario on Hudson Bay, they're doing a lot of great work to find innovative solutions, solar power, and looking at wind themselves. I'd just like to get your thoughts on the role that the government can play and should play in supporting those community-based solutions as well.
Yeah, I think government has a critical role. Creating policy certainty is what the finance sector continuously says that they need. One of our principles also, though, was that there's actually more certainty than uncertainty. Like, we know we are going to need massive electrification. That's key. We know that we're going to need probably different energy carrier sources to move everything that's around the landscape. So policy certainty that will allow the finance sector and the private sector to act quickly is very important. Governments also have a role of direct support, and our work that we feel will feed into the ERP, we think will give the government some guidance on where across the full economy that the government support is most needed. And in many cases, it is on the types of things that remote communities would need to do.
De la même façon, si vous me permettez.
Likewise, if I may just add to that, it's important to respect differences and regional particularities so that local solutions at a grassroots level are also important and must be factored in.
Great. We're going to cut it off that one. And our next questioner is Ms. Lapointe. We'll have 5 minutes. Over to you, Ms. Lapointe.
Thank you. Mr. Wicklum, in your initial observations report that was issued last June, you state, and this will be a direct quote from the report, that the most likely pathways will take into account that there is no one-size-fits-all approach for Canada, and that we should prioritize place-based solutions. So I'd be interested to hear your suggestions today on how the government should create and implement, actually also, effective, regionally sensitive policy.
I think what you're doing is stating one of the great challenges for Canada. I mean, if we were in Europe, we would probably have 10 countries or more based on regional differences. So this is one of the great challenges for a large country like ours. In the emissions reduction plan that the government legally has to put into the public domain before the end of March, we expect that the government will have more details in terms of how that will be done. I think one of the key things in our terms of reference that we are asked to do, and we're taking very seriously, is engage. So we are here not to be the technical experts. We are here to essentially represent Canada in its full diversity, and then talk to Canadians in their full diversity and get regional and local suggestions about how to actually address the question that you're asking. So that's the mechanism that we're using. And as we develop over the years, we think that we can get much more formal in doing that work. But how do you accommodate regionality and local interests? Talk to the regions and talk to local interests. That's key for what we want to do.
So on that note, were Indigenous climate organizations included in your consultations, and what did you learn from that?
So we had 8 roundtables that included a whole suite of Indigenous organizations and representations. One of the things that we did is that at the request of people that were meeting with us, organizations that were meeting with us, in many cases, in some cases in our request, we put in place essentially Chatham House rules in order to have people feel that they could speak freely and bluntly. We gave people assurance that we wouldn't debrief specifically on what individual organizations or people said in our consultations. That's actually quite normal. Having said that, we did ask for every organization to submit a formal submission onto our website, and those are all will be summarized in a summary document. What we can say is that we have elected right off the bat, probably within the first month of our operations, that the concept of listening to Indigenous interests and ensuring that the transition to net zero happened in a way where they could benefit equally from that economic upside was going to be absolutely critically core to our philosophy and in our work. So that's a generic answer, if I may.
Okay. And very quickly, so what I'm hearing from the mining industry, and I'm sure the oil and gas sector is facing similar challenges, is that there's a time sensitivity of needing to take action. And we need to support our energy industries and give them the tools to meet the goals we're setting. How can government move the process of net zero emission along more quickly?
I think that's a struggle that every government is having in the whole world at the level of the nation or the province or the region or the municipality. Like, how do we act quicker? I think my feeling is that we have moved from a paradigm of emissions reduction, where we've been in for 30 years, where we had the luxury of just reducing emissions by a certain amount and the world would have been fine. Collectively at the level of the world, we didn't move quick enough. So we're forced now into an emissions elimination paradigm that actually removes options off the table for us. This isn't about like what sector can produce the cheapest so that we get to a certain reduction. Every sector has to drive to zero. And I think changing from this emissions reduction to emissions elimination paradigm also changes the onus of leadership. This is not just about Environment Canada and climate change anymore. It's about, frankly, every federal department, agency, crown. It's about every province, territory, every municipal government. And I'm going to say, especially the private sector. And the private sector are the ones that are actually going to invest. And the philosophy for decades has been, collectively, us looking to Environment and Climate Change Canada to say, make it worth our while so we can invest. That paradigm will not work anymore in an emissions elimination paradigm. The private sector, frankly, has to, I believe, inspect how they make decisions, how they contribute to developing policy and regulation, how they contributed to developing investable projects that are aligned with net zero, a net zero society. So I think there's very much a question of not what more can the government do, what can everyone do, especially the private sector.
Great, thank you. We're going to have to stop.
If I may, says the witness.
Non, c'est bon. Allez-y.
No, go ahead. That's okay. No worries.
Really briefly, if you have...
En fait, tout ce que je voulais...
Well, basically, this is what I wanted to add. Doing little now and doing a lot later will not work. Inertia, inaction has a cost. We need to take the bull by the horns, and everyone needs to pitch in.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go now to Monsieur Simard, who will have 2.5 minutes.
Merci, monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I like what you just said, Ms. Persal. Inaction does have a cost. I agree entirely with you. And don't interpret what I'm going to say to you as a criticism of your work. It's simply to get a better handle on what your terms of reference are. In introduction, Ms. Persal spoke to about a number of principles and values that will enable us to reach these targets. And that's what I'd like to turn our attention back to. Earlier, I was listening to you, and you spoke at length about what your terms of reference are, but I'm wondering if you are autonomous, independent, and arm's length to the extent that you can issue recommendations that are bold and courageous vis-à-vis the government. Earlier, I referred to principles. They're quite straightforward. I'm not a specialist when it comes to the environment, but often there's the idea of polluter pays. We don't reward bad actors that engage in bad practices. And yet, based on the studies that this committee has been engaging in for some time, we're trying to make the oil and gas sector a promising sector that will help to combat climate change. And yet it is precisely this sector that is causing problems for us. So that's my misgiving, particularly in the recommendations that you are going to make, whether you have enough autonomy, enough independence. And let me give you a very simple example. We studied the issue of hydrogen. You're probably aware. A number of witnesses told us that we need to put a price on the molecule of hydrogen, which is based on hydroelectricity or biomass. That price might be a tad higher, but what we don't calculate is that the molecule of hydrogen that is from a molecule of gas using carbon sequestration technologies, that cost is also high. Oftentimes technology is costly, right? Will you be sufficiently autonomous to say it is a bad idea to invest all our money in the oil and gas sector by trying to reduce emissions? Response. If I could just respond to the beginning of your question, and as to hydrogen, my colleague is far better positioned than I am, so I'll hand the floor to him at that point. But it is clear, Mr. Simar, I can assure you that all of the committee, the body's members care about their independence, care about their autonomy. That's a fundamental principle that everyone agreed on and signed off on before commencing.
Sure. If you can answer in 30 seconds, both the Conservative and Liberal witness went 45 seconds over, so I'll give you 30 seconds if you can try to answer or contribute.
We do feel completely independent. We continuously check our operations and how we interact with the government to make sure that we actually are independent. So we are confident we're independent. And in terms of does the government support the oil and gas sector? We're thinking deeply on how the government could most optimally drive the country to net zero and where the supports should be across multiple sectors. Even though we've been asked for this one specific oil and gas task, we do think that cannot be set in isolation, and there has to be a very deliberate decision about supports across, even within the context of driving oil and gas to zero.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Angus, you have the last 2.5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. Going for what you have, your 10 values and principles, is not to allow increases in greenhouse gas emissions, and that's in your principles. And the fact that we're looking at a possible 1 million barrel a day increase. How do we square that? Are you telling us that it's possible to increase production by 1 million barrels a day and not have any greenhouse gas emissions?
And so you're getting the 1 million barrels increase from the Canadian Energy Regulator forecast report?
Yep, and from what's planned from TMX, which has been finalized and built.
Yeah, again, we take a look at that forecast from the Canadian Energy Regulator and see it as one of many prognostications about what the future will look like. Some of them, the one we rely on the most, frankly, is the International Energy Agency, which predicts by 2050 gas consumption globally will be down by 55% and oil by 75%.
I see that, but the fundamental problem here is that greenhouse gas emissions have continued to rise dramatically.
Especially in the oil and gas sector, sir.
In the oil and gas sector, you're right. So when the Prime Minister stood at Paris and said Canada's back, since then the Environment Commissioner said that we have become the outlier of the G7, that we have gone from failure to failure. Then the Prime Minister stood at COP26 and said there would be an emissions cap without talking to you guys. I'm asking a straightforward question. If we're going to be moving forward with increases in production, how can we tell anybody on the planet that we're actually going to be doing what you call prioritizing early and deep reductions? These are two contradictory positions. Will you be advising the government that they're going to have to move towards capping production in a serious way in order to cap emissions? That seems to be the logical question here. Do you agree?
No. Well, no. There's a couple. I'll unpack that question. We're not going to advise on capping production because this is about emissions.
Okay, but can you tell me that you can increase upwards of 1 million barrels a day or more and actually then decrease emissions? Are you saying that that's possible?
we're not addressing that question because it's an artificial question. The concept of
That's
increasing
not an
by million-
artificial question. That is the real question that the planet is facing. That is your obligation to tell me that that's an artificial question. If you're mandated not to have an increase in emissions, then how do you tell me that you could have an emission increase in production and that the question of the emissions is not a factor? That's your job.
Well, there's a tension here between production levels and intensity. If you combine production levels with the intensity of the product, you get emissions. So there actually are scenarios where.
But have you ever seen those scenarios? The emissions have gone up year after year. They've never gone down.
You know what? I'm going to have to jump in.
Artificial. This is we're talking real world here.
I hate to cut it off here, but we are at time. We're at 2:00, which is when I said we would have to end. I did want to thank Ms. Ipper-Ciel and Mr. Wicklum for joining. I know you rearranged your schedules. It was very important for our committee to hear from you near the start of this particular study. And so I thank you for making yourselves available today. And for the committee, we are going to be meeting again this afternoon at 3:30. We're in a different room, I think, over in West Block this afternoon. We have 5 witnesses appearing as per the notice of meeting. And with that, we are adjourned. We'll see everyone at 3:30. Have a good question period.